Audible. I'm Chris. On today's episode of the podcast, we have Peacemaker Tries Hard writer Kyle Starks on. The two-time Eisner Award-nominated creator of Rock Candy Mountain and Sex Castle talks about capturing the essence of the Peacemaker TV series while making something uniquely in their voice. Sit back and listen in. Hey, what's up, Kyle?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me here.
Good. I'm excited to have you on, especially these days with, Peacemaker Tries Hard coming out. That is actually the first time I've read your work. And when I read it, I was like, I got to find more, which I think is always good when someone, transitions to those big two books, especially if they've been in the industry that long. So what was it like sort of getting into Peacemaker? Did they approach you? Did you have a pitch for it?
Man, it's a pretty funny story. First of all, I want to say there's nothing any creator likes to hear more than we like this thing, we found something else of yours. I think art's the artist. So if you like something made by X, you're probably going to like everything by X, right? And I have what people like to call a singular voice, he says humbly. So, if you like Peacemaker, the Peacemaker is very much in sort of that James Gunn TV series. There's a reason why they asked me to do it. It's kind of perfect casting. It's kind of what I do. So it's a funny story. I've been making comics for a while, as you know. I just got my third Eisner nomination for If You Got Anthologies this year. But I kind of just started doing my big two stuff now. How many years in? 6 years in, which is great. But I didn't have a lot of interest. I wanted to make my own thing. So I wasn't really, what's the word I'm looking for? Pursuing it. I wasn't really pursuing it. Because I like to tell my stories. I can kill all of my characters. Any of my characters can die. There's not a company worried about that IP maintaining, like the stakes are high. I can just do whatever I want. And I like that because they're my stories. But the way that historically I do sort of big, dumb action comedies where there's a lot of heart going on underneath. I'm taking the long way to answer this question because I warned you in advance, I talk at length. My first book, Sex Castle, is like it's about the world's former hitman who sort of tries to give it up but never gives it up. And I say it's the best 80s action movie never made. But really what it's about is sort of like our choices and parental responsibility and like all these things that are more interesting to me than just guys making jokes and hitting each other. But there's nothing I love more than guys making jokes and hitting each other. So here's how Peacemaker happened. And I want to preface this. It's not how it works. This is just not... It's not how it works. The industry doesn't work this way. It never happened. I don't know why it happened this time. It did. I watched this. I love James Gunn. I loved him before he was doing superhero movies. I like his superhero movies a lot. And I was watching Peacemaker. I'm a wrestle guy, so I was very excited, even more excited, because it's exactly what I like. It's my type of jam. It's big, dumb action stuff. There's a lot of heart going on underneath. And I really enjoyed it. Full stop. Then someone tweeted, hey, DC, why don't you have a Peacemaker series like the show, and why isn't Kyle Starks writing it? And I said, oh, I could write the hell out of that. Like, I didn't even think about it. I was just enjoying this program, and I wouldn't have put two to two together, but this person did, and I retweeted it, ha ha ha, call me DC. And I almost immediately got a DM. Saying, we're talking about doing that. We think you'd be a good fit for it. Would you like to pitch something? So they reached out to me as a result of a tweet. Again, that's not how it works. It's just not how it works. Why it happened this one time, I don't know. I think my former DC editors I worked with probably maybe reached out to someone. I don't know. So that's how it happened. And like I said, it's just, I was like, I can do this. This is the superhero story that I can tell. That's tailor-made for me. And then they're like, hey, we're getting Steve Pugh, who's tailor-made for sort of direct market superhero humor, because his stuff looks like superhero stuff, but he also knows how to do a joke. It's just a great team. I just don't think it's just a great team, and it's picture perfect. It's perfect casting for a Peacemaker comic.
Yeah, and kind of talking about your approach early on, that kind of sound like James Gunn's pitch for Suicide Squad. You open that movie and he kills everyone, including Captain Boomerang.
Yeah, I mean, that's his whole thing is like. His whole thing is very much as mine, is like take the biggest, dumbest spectacle and have it mean something. Like have these people be real people, no matter how dumb or weird or goof they are. And I'm like a poor man's James Gunn. I'm like the discount James Gunn, because that's the stuff I love. I love character driven stuff more than I love spectacle or action. But it's like, man, I love action. I was raised on 80s action movies. I love a punch and I love a kick, but I love character stuff and I love quirky character stuff the most. So Yeah, James Gunn. I mean, like, you know, if you're gonna be a discount somebody, be a discount James Gunn. I think.
Yeah, it also helps that he's running DC Studios now too. But I mean, like, what's that like the transition been like? Was it difficult to kind of like put yourself in that? Because it seemed like you never were actively pursuing that. So what's it been like, sort of tailoring your voice and kind of, obviously this is a huge deal because when I read the book, I'm like, oh, this is the Peacemaker I've been actually waiting to read since the
Yeah,
show premiered. Because they have highlighted him and he shows up in Green Arrow. They've tried to like raise his profile and stuff like that, but you never quite get that version. He looks like the version in it, but you never quite get the version of from the show. And reading your book and seeing the art, it has that humor. Like one panel I could think of was in the last issue where he just has the tampons on his wound and he's
hmm
like crying. And just like those are kind of like the moments that I'm like, all right, this is the Peacemaker I've been waiting for. Being that we're probably not going to get a season 2 anytime soon, or Lord knows when we'll see John Cena portray that character again. So it's good to kind of get it in this. And what was it like, sort of bringing that, but also sort of maintaining your voice?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I don't recall. There was like a very, very, very short sort of discussion of whether, like, what would it be, and I said it needs to be as close to the show as it can be, because I think a big failing that direct market publishers, the big two publishers, do
Mm,
is they will go, um, like Blue Beetle is popular. The Blue
yeah,
Beetle TV show is really popular, and then they'll put out a Blue Beetle comic that's nothing like it. Um, and that won't, like, for example, as I speak poorly of DC, like Suicide Squad as a series famously sort of like can't go. Like it fails under so many issues. It's like, why isn't, like, the movie was so popular? And it's like, well, because it's not the movie at all. It's like it's not the tone or the energy, or it's just another Suicide Squad series. And I think that's sort of the type of things like people, it's hard to, one, a lot of times these books are coming out before the movie comes out. So they're just
yeah,
trying to sync something up. And you never know. It's like, oh, then the movie or TV show goes a completely different direction than what it previously had been. It's like, what a curveball, and it wasn't going to work because of just bad planning and bad timing. So it was a very brief conversation where I said, I want to make more of the show, which is not legally as legally close as we can get, which is why the
yeah.
first page of issue 1 is what it is, where they're complaining about how comics and movies are always different from each other. You know, why that might be, because I want people to be prepared. It's like it's going to be a little bit different for reasons that are outside of our control, basically. But let me, again, I'll tangent, I'll backtrack. I did Rick and Morty for 5 years. And when I did Rick and Morty, I never wanted to do Kyle Stark's Rick and Morty. I wanted to do more Rick and Morty. And I felt the same way about Peacemaker. Both of those things are what I do, though. They're trope heavy, they're smart, but they're dumb. There's a lot of emotional heart. In terms of keeping my voice, like, this was very easy because I'm just telling a Kyle Stark story, because Peacemaker is in many ways a Kyle Stark's character, thanks to James Gunn. So it was easy to maintain my voice. I'll say, like, in terms of editorial, was amazing. It was a great process. There was, getting it going was the hardest part, because there's certain things, like, I couldn't use Eagly or Vigilante for purposes. And it's like, well, how do you replace those characters
Yeah,
if you want to still tell a similar story? But when I was a kid, man, I liked I'm old. I'm 46. When I was a little kid, I liked Star Wars, right? And I remember reading the Marvel Star Wars comic, and at one point, Jackson the Rabbit shows up. You know who Jackson the Rabbit is? He's a
yeah.
big green robot, right? Or big green rabbit. And I remember, like, that issue. I was like, this isn't Star Wars. This is something else. And I was out. I was completely out. I was done. In fact, I don't even like Star Wars anymore. Neither here. Hot take. Hot take. But it's like, to me, I always think about, if you're wanting to acquire something because you liked it, and then it's not that thing, what a disappointment, you know? And for me, so it's very much, I want it to be as close to the show as we can be. One, because it's a great character, it's a great show. Why would we not want to continue that? And it's like, why I want more of it. Like, that's my,
Yeah.
like, when you create something, try to create the thing you want to exist in the world. And when it comes to Peacemaker, I wanted more Peacemaker. So that's what we aspired to do, and I think we did. And yeah, worst case scenario is that's your season 2. There's your season 2. I don't think it'll be that long. I could be wrong. I don't know everything about everything, but
No, of course. I mean, he's busy with Superman. So, me and my girlfriend, we love that show, and especially Vigilante. So hopefully, you get your chance to kind of extend the series and they get to, hey, we're not using Vigilante, or, whatever legal reasons clear up. And
give
it's
him to
like,
me. Give him to me. Let me play with him. He's so special.
but you brought up a really good point, and I think it's sort of why like those big two comics fail in a lot of ways when it comes to popularity. Like, I can't count the amount of times I've been in a shop and someone's like, hey, my kid is really into Demon Slayer, and they point at Demon Slayer Volume One. They grab that, and then their kid goes on their way and stuff like that. And then, if a kid, like for example, me and my son, we went to see, Into the Spider Verse. If we go into a comic book store right now and we grab the latest issue of Miles Morales Spider Man,
It's not that. It's
and
something different.
yeah, he's not wearing his Jordans. He's
Yeah.
not, the only Spider-Man in his universe. So it's tough, and I think that's a really good approach in terms of like, I think that's the way they need to go if they're gonna, continue to grow that.
I think that the thing is, well, that this is a whole completely different conversation.
No, of course.
I've been saying, I mean, comics has failed to convert from the success of those films, which have been for what the last 10 years. Literally, those are action films. Those are the only action films. There is no Schwarzenegger. There's no Stallone. If you wanted big explosions and you wanted people fighting, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's et cetera, et cetera. And they haven't converted off of that, and it's always been confusing to us creators because it's like, why would you not put like a week long trial to Marvel Unlimited or something
Yeah,
at the end, a QR code? Why not have a reading list suggestion at the end of the
yeah,
movie, even to get these 4 volumes?
yeah,
Boys sold out. Boys sold
yeah,
out. And I'm blanking, but there's a couple other things that Invincible sold out,
yeah,
right? And it's curious that they just for whatever reason weren't able to sort of figure out a way. Why not just do a Spider-Verse series?
yeah,
That's even if like it's not Miles because you don't want to interrupt the shows. You do it with a minor character, but you still get the Spider-Verse feel. Why not do that? There's a concern about canon, and there's also one hand never knows what the other hand's doing. But I think if as a creator who only wants his stories to be read, and if they made a movie out of something, if I do Peacemaker and I get you to read something else, for example, like all that's fine, make the movie. It can be different, but I just want people to read more of my stuff, right? So I think something that's really promising in that regards is that they're doing, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and James Gunn says it's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And what happened? That book sold out, which it should because it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, by the way, if you haven't read it. It's
yeah,
an amazing book. And so like it's promising that it does seem like people are trying a little bit more because it's not going to be the same. It just won't. The film people don't care about the history of comics and its very successful lore and its niche group, right? For whatever reason. But I do feel like we're finally, even if it's just the tiniest little inch, the tiniest nudge, it feels like someone's like, oh, look, there's a way to do it and still sell the books, which is what we want. We want you to read the books because then you'll be hooked, right? A good story will make you go, man, can you imagine? Like, I mean, just like to go back, if Suicide Squad, the first one, was so popular, people went and bought like Ostrander's first volume. That's a good book.
yeah,
It's nothing. It's nothing like that. But I think if you read that, you'd go, that's pretty good. I want to read the next one. But the problem is there's more people who just want that fix. They don't want just another good book. They want the thing they want it to be. And I think that's tough. And I think comics is trying to figure it out. I fear that maybe we're too far past. But we'll find out. I do think it's getting better. I mean, you could, if someone really likes the new Flash, you go in and be like, here's the Flashpoint. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like there's things you can do. Comics hasn't figured it out, but we hopefully will,
yeah.
right?
Well, I think, DC does a pretty good job. The last year of movies, at the end of each trailer, there's like three graphic novels of
Yeah,
like,
I saw it for Shazam. Yeah,
yeah. And in Batman, they had like the Long Halloween and stuff like that. And then I think they created like a little box set with like the Long Halloween and three like different like things that
Tim
inspired
Sale
the
books.
book. Yeah, but it's still a struggle, and like you said, it might be too late. I think people are getting a little fatigued because it's the only thing they see on TV.
Yeah, it's the only thing that's selling in the theaters right now. I
Yeah,
think that's getting better too, though. But
yeah,
you
it's
know,
tough. But yeah, like for example, like Secret Invasion, you're watching that. If you picked up Secret Invasion, you'd be like, "What the fuck? This is completely
yeah, it's
different."
nothing like it.
Yeah,
That's
you're
too
like,
bad.
yeah, which
And
sucks.
the shame is like that's a great Secret Invasion was a great book that you think would be the same. They pick it up and they're like, oh, this is different, but it's still good. But
Yeah,
you don't go in knowing that. Like
yeah,
if you're just someone who's watching Disney and you're like, oh, I like this. I wonder what the comics like. There's no warning. There's no like it's different, but it's the same. Because I think people would be okay with that. That's why I really leaned into that first page. I was like, I really need this first page because it's going to be a little bit different. And I want them to know going in, like, oh, it's going to be a little different, but then you still get the same vibes. And that's really what we're shooting for.
yeah, and you capture the essence, and I think it goes with the title too. Tries hard. The show is really about like Peacemaker trying hard not to be a loser, trying hard to be the superhero he thinks he is. Everyone sees
Yeah.
him, they immediately see he's terrible, he's a bad person, he's more of a supervillain, he's been to prison, like,
Yeah.
but he sees himself on the level of a Superman, a Batman, And I think you guys really capture that of like, he's emotionally distraught because of his father and all those things. And there's some really good moments and fun moments. And I think it's cool the way you kind of you don't have Eagly, but you have Bruce Wayne in there that kind of
Yeah.
really captures that relationship. So like, we're in 3 issues in, like what's to come? Like what can we see? Is there any like surprise characters coming or
Oh
anything?
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I listen. I can't. What's issue 4? Is issue 4? I'm so far past issue 5 for sure. Am I wrong about this? Issue 3
Issue
just.
3, it just came out, and that's the
What
one with
happens on
the
the?
tech.
What's the end? What's the end of issue 3?
Issue 3 is with the Red Bee, like the red bumblebee. His parole
All right.
officer
So
reveals.
yeah. So next issue, there's a villain who's picture. I can't say who it is though. You know
Yeah,
what I
no, of
mean? I'm
course.
sure, and they're not on the cover, or maybe they are on the cover. No, I don't think so. I don't think Chris anchored her. But no, I mean, I do start like it's the great thing about Black Label is that it's non-canonical, right? So they're more open to maybe me doing dumb things. And I for sure use, in my opinion, one of the most bonkers, wildest DC villains who no one talks about, and I think that's because DC doesn't want you to think about them. I think it's issue 4. I'm almost positive. It's issue 4. But we sprinkle it through. Like I brought Red B in. That's my deep cut character, and I wish I would have read issue 3 before this conversation now, so I
Of
can remember
course.
what happened exactly in it. And he's in the bar, right? Is he in the bar
Yeah,
in 3?
he's in the
All
bar,
right.
and they come in. They kill the old guy, and then he beats that team
Uh-huh.
again, and then he's like he gets home, and they're
I
like, "We're
can't
gonna
be a
lock you up."
hero to fuck up the tree, and he fights
Yeah.
Red B. So there's for sure another deep cut character. I bring up another character back from the past. Maybe 5 has that. I don't think so. I think 5 and 6 are basically a 2-part finale. So I think next issue, there's 2 new characters. They're both fun. One's a blast from the past, like sort of like Red B, and the other one's a wild DC villain. And then we get into this epic final battle. It's really good. I mean, I was really pleased with the scripts. There's a thing with writing that's really tough where you go, oh, I wish I could have done that better. I could have tweaked that better. And I feel really pleased with all those scripts. I'm really happy with the final product. Steve's art is, again, it's perfect casting. I'm really pleased with it. I know DC's really pleased with it. Hopefully it's selling, and hopefully readers are pleased with it. I think they will be. I think it's a fun book, and I think what should comics be? They should be fun. The more than anything else, they should be fun.
Yeah, and like in terms of like that collaboration, obviously you have 6 issues and stuff. But I think something DC has been doing lately that's been really cool is extending series. Like that Green Arrow series was 6 issues, now it's 12. They unveiled like a Blue Beetle ongoing and stuff like that. Have you guys talked about like extending it or going into different characters past this?
We haven't. I mean, I would assume, though I could not say, that sales will decide if there's more. I've certainly talked to DC. I just had a call with them today about doing other stuff. I'm doing a bunch of little stuff with them, like little anthology, and like I'm really enjoying my time with DC, and they are asking me to do stuff. The words Peacemaker Tries Harder Series 3 or Series 2 has not came out. But I'm sure sales have a lot to do with that. I have no idea what they are. I have no idea if they're a killer or if it's. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that will decide if there's more. Certainly, I will say, and for me, those 6 issues are a full story. So if they were like, "Can you add 2 issues?" I'm like, I don't know what it would be. It'd have to be a new arc. It'd have to be a new story for Chris and his people. But I think it's a issue 6 ends on a really good note. But the character's not dead, right? I mean, there could always be more. And that could be a Black Label thing. I don't know. It could be because it's Black Label. They want to leave it how it is. I have no idea. I like the character. Like I said, it's very much in my wheelhouse, and I could, of course, do more. But it hasn't been discussed. I'm doing other stuff. We're doing other stuff.
That's awesome. And like I said, it's my version of Peacemaker because again, I've seen him appear here and there, and he's made like references to like hippies and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like that same sort of that action and sort of that comedy and that heart that sort of the series brought to it. Because I think what your series does well too is what the Peacemaker show did. The movie established, hey, he's an asshole, peace at any cost. He killed Rick Flag. And then you have this solo series where you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna really like the guy who killed Rick Flag. And
Sure.
then through it, you're like, oh, like you see he's actually sad and alone and he had
Yeah.
a terrible past. So I think you guys do a really good job of capturing that with the new series.
I think with the show and what I sort of aspire to do is I feel like he's a very modern character in that he's flawed in a way that we all are flawed now that before would have been perceived as weakness for a character, are humiliating or embarrassing. But I think he's like, look, like most of us are, especially I think for people younger than me, again, I'm very
Mm-hmm.
old, is that you're so aware, like trying to learn your failures to sort of
Mm-hmm.
overcome them and to try to constantly be a better person, even if you're battling your instincts to do that. I think it's a very modern idea. And I think that the thing is like, Peacemaker's pretty accepting because he's bisexual. I mean,
Yeah.
he understands like people are different, but it takes some time to not have like the immediate macho response to like denigrate whatever that thing is that he feels like he shouldn't like. And I think that's very modern, and I think it's very interesting. And I think there's a place for a character like that in superheroes. And like, why not be this guy? I just think he really he's become an additive character just in his how modern he is. I think.
And for you outside, like your goal is obviously just to make comics, and you've been working on your stuff for 6 years at this point.
Yeah,
So
longer.
like,
6 years.
yeah,
6 years professionally. Longer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that like now that you kind of have dabbled, gotten a taste of the big two? Like, what's it like, sort of going back to what you've been working on? Like, are there any skills you've taken on, or is there something where you're like, oh wow, I didn't know? Or like in these 3 months since the series has come out, have you been getting like different responses at cons? Like, have people been picking up your older stuff and been like, hey, like this is like this is what I need?
That's a tough one. I
Yeah,
mean, I've been doing it for, I don't think I've learned anything. I mean, it's literally a different skill. It's literally a different skill because it's someone else's toy. Um, and maybe in that, I like enclosed stories. I like beginning, middles, and ends. Like, I think the best stories have those, whereas big two stories have beginning and middles. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
they just go on and on. And to me, there's no stakes and there's no emotional payoff. And so telling a story like that is something I don't have in my skill set. That I only want to be a better writer. I only want to tell better stories. All I care about is telling engaging stories that make people feel something, and that people read them. I'm not making stories for the void. I say it all the time. So the thing is good is like I'm sure it's brought visibility to me. I think like I hate this place, the Eisner-nominated. I hate this place. Skybound just wrapped up this week with number 10, and like that book was my biggest selling book prior to Peacemaker, and I'm guessing on that.
Yeah.
And it really increased my visibility. A lot of people had never read me because my previous series hadn't sold 30,000
Yeah.
or whatever it was. So I know because of I Hate This Place, my book at Dark Horse, Where Monsters Lie, which was a sort of a horror comedy that I'm extremely proud of, sold out. Like it sold out. Every issue sold out. And I don't think that would have happened if I Hate This Place wasn't such a big deal. And now Peacemaker's here. So my visibility is very high right now.
Yeah.
Rock Candy Mountain, which was my first Image series, Eisner nominated, is selling again. And I assume it has something to do with those things, right? Because people are trying to find other stuff, and that's something that you can find. So I think there's some of that, which is great because that's all you want. Like this, which is, by the way, this is full circle to how we started, right? All you want is for someone to read everything you've done. Everything I did, I made to be read and consumed, and I said to make someone feel someone to be fun. And sometimes fun isn't haha fun. Sometimes it's just a journey. Like so, I don't know if I've learned anything except for maybe like I'll tell you. Like I started as a cartoonist, which means the first like 3 books I did, I wrote and drew. I did all the art. I did everything for, right? And so the hardest thing for me has been collaboration. Collaboration with an artist, collaboration with an editor. It's tough because I made them all by myself for so long, and I'm very type A. And when you move into this big two stuff, I'm doing Marvel Unleashed, been announced with the Pet Avengers basically for Marvel. And that's an entirely different experience because it's Marvel editorial versus DC editorial. But the collaborative process is these aren't your characters, they're their characters. But also, these characters have places in people's hearts already. And so you want to tell your own story. And Peacemaker again was easy. But for these other stuff I've done, this is like what I'm learning and what I'm endeavoring is name a character. I'm not going to name a character because I'll say when I'm working on. Name a DC character.
Uh Booster Gold.
Booster Gold. So if I do a Booster Gold story, I very much want it to be a Kyle Stark Booster Gold story. But I want everyone who loves Booster Gold to get what they want, right? And I think that's a very difficult line to sort of walk, and it makes it hard. But it's not my toy. I want to tell my story. But I also understand that that's not my character. And they have a history that's real. I did a Thanos short story. And I was like, I don't really care anything about Thanos, but I thought if I was a Thanos fan, what do I want? And that's the comic I made. So there's a lot of that. It's finding this, it's compromising not with just what characters you can use, but what can those characters do? You're like, oh, I want to use X villain. They're like, you can't use X villain. It's like, well, that villain was chosen because of the story, what they bring to the story. It's very specific. It's like changing that makes everything change. And it's a lot of that. And I know, like, talking to people who've done big two stuff before me, who like me were comedy guys, or it's like there's a lot of being ready to like acquiesce and compromise. And I'm trying very hard. So if I've learned anything from big two, it's to be a little less precious, but also not to completely give up on what's mine, because that's why I'm here. They could have got anyone to do it. They asked me to do it. So I don't know if I learned anything. Like, there's nothing to take away in terms of like what I've learned about creating. It's just everything's a different skill. I think about guys like Matt Rosenberg, who I like a lot. How are they name any Matt, Donnie? I mean, even like guys like Cullen and Jim. Like those guys, their skill is they can write a 12-issue series. Like if you're like, we want 12 issues of X, they're like, okay. But I can't do that. I can do like a 5 or 6 issue thing because that's what I've always done, or what I've done for years, maybe 10. And it ends. It has to end for me because that's what I want in stakes. And it's like, well, they don't have to do that. They can just tell a great superhero story. And I'm trying to figure that out. And it's just growing as a writer. And but I think I always want them to be, as we've said from the beginning, I want to be character driven. I want them to have emotional beats, probably a little humor because I can't help myself. I want to be fun. I want to be fun, and I want people to feel things. And as long as I get to do that, then it'll all be aces. And so far, so good.
Yeah, it's good to have that awareness about it too, because I think the reason why these characters are able to live that long is that people are so passionate about it. We all have those memories of like, oh, I didn't like this era, but this run was pretty good, or this kind of like that
For
was
sure.
weird, but it had this like little piece of it. I think it's always good to kind of have that approach of being like, all right, like I may not be the biggest Thanos fan in the world, but what like if someone was picking up this Thanos thing off the shelf, what would they want to see? And how can I
Yeah.
put my spin on it and add that to it?
Yeah. And if I don't see that, I just won't do it. I don't have to do, I don't have to do it. But I like the challenge of it. Like the Pet Avengers, man, read Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton and then come back and tell me why would they ask me to do Pet Avengers? Like read Sex Castle. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the time, I was like, oh, it's a challenge. And can I solve it? And I think I did. I'm really pleased with that series too, which I think comes out, I don't know, September. I don't know when it comes out. I don't know. I have no idea. They announced it. I have no idea when it comes out. But like, I'm really pleased with that because it did what they wanted to do and it did what I wanted to do. And as long as I can do that, I'm happy. And I think because again, I have a very singular voice. It's a little funny. It's a little quirky. It's character driven. I think bringing that to a character adds to them, but it has to also be the right story at the right time. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work for everybody. But I think it's additive to these characters' worlds to do a little different story every now and then, a little different story. And if they ask me and I have it, I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And in terms of like, now your series has ended, and what like being that you've gone 10 issues now, and that's the longest. Do you ever feel like you would ever go further into an ongoing, or you feel like that's a skill set that you're like, you know what, I don't even want to try. Like it'll be
No,
cool.
like I said, like I think writing's tough,
Yeah.
and being good is hard. Getting better is hard. I try to be as objective as I can and go, these are my shortcomings. I can't do cover. Like I'm bad at design. Even when I draw, I'm bad at hero shots. I'm bad at covers. I can't do design work. It's like I can't color very well. You want to know what your shortcomings are. Now knowing that, those are the things I try harder at, right? So I can kind of bump myself up. And writing is one of those things where I go, I can do this genre. I can do this genre and this type of story easy. But you don't want to just do the one story. But so you're like, well, what do I want to do? I'm excited about this. And you have to break it down and go, these are my strengths and my weaknesses. My current weakness in terms of direct market comics, and I would argue, I don't know if it's a weakness, I just don't need to do it, is I could not just do like that, an ongoing, like for I Hate This Place, which just ended at 10. It was supposed to be an ongoing. We pitched it as an ongoing. And that was a book whose story I figured out in a way that had a beginning, middle, and end, but the middle could have gone on sort of endlessly. And I could have done that book for 50 issues. I could have done 35 issues easy. But I knew the end. I knew there was an end in sight. To just do, it's like, hey, would you like to write on, we'll say Booster Gold again. There's a new Booster Gold, like Booster Gold, you'll start at 20 and just go until we're done with you or whatever, right? I couldn't do it. But if you gave me a number, I could figure it out. But what the challenge I want is someone to be like, hey, we're starting a new Booster Gold series. It's an ongoing. We want you to do it. And I'll be like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm so type A though, my dude. There's nothing accidental. I can't improvise. I can't just write things and be like, I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
And that's a strength of mine. It's why I think my stories are dense and good, and they do what I want them to do. They're fun, and everything seems meaningful because it is. But also, it means I can't just jump. I don't have it in me. So that's another thing. It's like one of my strengths, but objectively, it's a weakness too. I could figure out a thing. If someone's like, we want you to do an ongoing horror series, I'd be like, let me figure out that scenario, a scenario that I can extend and extend and extend. But at the same time, like, man, if there's not an end, if there's not a payoff at some point to me, like, what's the point? Like, it's just a fun ride. Sure. Like, I like a fun ride, but the journey is always to a destination. Like, you want a fun ride and then you stop and you go, that was the journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm learning. There's lots of, I'm trying to be more collaborative, trying to be less type A on especially the big two stuff. So yeah, it's all about learning. Like, you have to be really objective about your stuff and be like, what didn't work here? How can I do that better? What's to learn from the situation? I'm always trying to do that because I want to be a better writer. And the reason why I want to be a better writer is because I want people to read my stories. And the better the stories are, the more people will read them. I think they're extremely good to this point. I think they're all very good. But that's it. The better you get, the more people will be stoked about it. And all you want is readers. I want people to read Sex Castle, and I want them to read Rocky and Mary, which were like my first two books, because I think they're really, really good. I think they're still really, really good. And like I said, so I try to get better. I do something and not try to get better at though. But that's one thing I could not do. If you were like, Kyle, it would be tough, man. Especially here's the reason why it's real tough. If you're like, Kyle, we're going to do minimum 25 issues of Booster Gold. And I'm like, okay, let me figure out 25 issues. But in my head, I know if sales aren't good, that's a 7-issue series. You know what I mean?
And then also at 25, you might have a fill-in artist. You might have this and all these things that kind of you can't control, which is like tough. And then you always get that what could have been, and then you're always talking about, hey.
I think that what could have been is what is really whatever the pie, like there's a percentage that is like, well, I have 6 ideas and you only let me do 2 of them. You know what I mean? And I know good writers will be like, well, you can take those other 4 ideas and make them something else. But I'm so type A, everything means something. Everything leads to even like jokey throwaway bits. I mean, look at Peacemaker as a good example. Even the jokes are character defining. They say something about the person, right? They say something about these characters. And so even the jokes aren't throwaway, like nothing's throwaway. And it makes it hard. So if you're like, I can't take those 4 ideas that were aimed specifically at Booster Gold, his time traveling shenanigans or whatever. And you're like, oh, well, you can just use your time traveling shenanigan 4 bits someplace else. Like, no, you can't. Like, you can't use them. I need a character who came from the future. Like, what, I'm going to make another character who came from the future with stolen shit. Like, there's only one. Like, I can't do it. So that's the thing. There's a fluidity that I haven't mastered. There's like not fluidity, like like a bendability. There's a word for that. Someone's like, he's a professional writer. He meant to say X word, and I don't have that. And that's something I'm definitely trying to get. Just because I think it'll make me happier.
Yeah.
Just because I'll be less crazy.
No, and I think that the collaboration part is important because you get to do things, and sometimes the best ideas, some people could iterate on your ideas, and you're like, I didn't quite think of it that way. Or, you get a page and you're looking at it and you're like, I wrote this, but you did that, and that's fun. So I think it's always good. And also as like, me as a reader, as an audience member, I love reading stuff and kind of going back and seeing where people changed. Or like, I didn't really like when they used to do this. And then you read something and you're like, they're so much better at that, or they figured this out.
Yeah. I think you can see, I just read Sex Castle is like almost full comedy. Though it does all the things I want to do, and Kill Them All, which is again, almost full comedy. I think Rock Candy Mountain is one where you're like, oh, I see he's doing it now. Like he's figuring. But if you read like Sex Castle, Rock Candy Mountain, and then say Old Head or Six Eye, like there's you can see like I'm tightening it up, right? Now I'm doing I Hate This Place, which was full horror. It's just like you're like, I think if you read I Hate This Place after reading those other books, you go, oh no, it's still 100%. It's 100% all of his stuff. But it's just a different genre and it's told in a different tone. And like, that's what I want. I wouldn't be able to tell a romance. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to write this book, and they're like, it's a great book. But I want people to be like, oh, that was a great Kyle Starks book. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. I want them all to be standalone great books. Like they're my books. And I want to be clear, like they're not only one person could have made those books. And that's for better or for worse,
Yeah.
literally. That's humbly I say that. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that my books are a little bit different, but I think they're good because they're a little bit different. And that's not always the case. But yeah, these are great questions, by the way.
Oh,
I
okay.
love it. Yeah, I love it.
No, no, that's again like, in a time with sort of like with, this discussions around like AI and sort of like things being so like, and I think that's, going back to like why I think we're in a weird spot with even comic book movies. It's not that like people have fatigue, they have fatigue of it all feeling the same. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? When you
it's
saw
very
Guardian,
formulaic.
yeah, when
It's
you saw
formulaic. Yeah,
Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a James Gunn movie. That's not
yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy, or if you see The Dark Knight, it's Christopher Nolan movie,
The first Iron Man was to me very much a John Favreau movie. I think you can really tell it's John Favreau, and then Sam Raimi. There's a
Yeah,
reason. The ones that stand out, you can go, who is the director on that? And almost always that matters. It's like, oh, it's someone who really knows what they're
yeah,
doing. And there's a lot to that. They definitely things that anything that even '80s action movies they became very formulaic because it's like, well, this is what works, right?
and they're
And that's
using the
just
same 2, 3 actors. It doesn't help.
yeah, it doesn't help.
Yeah,
But I think we all like stories, and as long as they keep telling good stories, it'll be all right. And that's why James Gunn comes along, and I'm forgetting somebody who did something really quirky. Um, that I like. There's more of it now. There's more of it. I mean, that first Black Panther movie stood out. It was so different than everything else, and so good because it was different, right? So I mean, it's going to happen. It's just that those big ones, the Infinity Wars, the Avengers, they're like, we got to please everybody, and it's like it's always going to be that way. It's like, what do you want? You want to watch for? Like, they announced Creature Commando, the cartoon. I bet it's going to be amazing. I bet it's going to
yeah,
be amazing. It's going to be not like those other ones at all. So yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. I think everyone always feels weird when they can tell us a product. Like a good example is I saw Fast X and then Spider Into the Spider Verse like in consecutive weeks with my son. And when the end of Spider Verse, I couldn't really enjoy it because I was like, "Fuck, that's another cliffhanger in 2 weeks." It
Yeah,
almost feels like these movie executives were like, "All right, clip after Infinity War and Endgame, we got to make two parters and stuff like that." So I
man.
literally left the theater and I couldn't for like 10 minutes. I couldn't enjoy Spider Verse because I was like, "Why?"
Because they giving you. I'll tell you, I hate a cliffhanger on a blockbuster, and no one warned me that. Spoilers, everybody!
Yeah,
That the new Spider Verse was a two-parter, and when the credits just rolled, I wasn't even mad at it. I was like, that movie was so good. I don't even give a shit. Like you can, and I think like there's a pretty good idea of what's going to happen at the beginning of the next one. It's like I don't care. It was great.
Mm,
Like that movie gave
yeah,
me everything. If it's at the end, it says, "Hey, more is coming." Normally, I hate that because I want, as I
yeah,
said, beginning, middle, and end. I really want the closure and the payoff of an ending. And like that movie was so good, I didn't even care. I was like, I want more. Thank you. Like this is an ending I want. I want to know there will be more soon. Um, so I wasn't mad at that at all. I wasn't even
yeah.
a little bit mad at it. So
I think for me, it was more the context of seeing a movie the week before, where I was like, and then also being with my son, I was like, man, you really have a weird time to be at the movies these days, where
yeah,
everything,
we never got that when we were kids.
yeah,
There's no Morse come. I mean, there was every now and then. I think Indiana Jones had like see him
yeah.
again in 6 years.
I mean, there's the serial aspect of that, but it is funny too, kind of going to see Fast X with him because I'm like, I remember when these guys were robbing DVD players, and I saw this with my dad. 20 years later, I didn't think they'd be driving cars
Jeez.
off dams in space, but here we are. But yeah, it's been great talking to you, and I'm glad sort of you found a space. I think as a creator is always good to kind of be in a space where you know what you want to do, which is like, hey, I want to be read. I want people to know when they pick up my books, they want to read a Kyle Starks book. It's not just like
Yeah, that's what we want.
cover like. For I want them to see my name and then be like, I want to grab that. And I think to
You
have
know,
that as a creator is awesome.
it's so funny because I don't know if it's even exactly that. It's not so much I want. It's not so much I want people. I mean, you do. There's
Yeah,
nothing more. There's no, like I think about how as someone who consumes media, I'm tangenting again. As someone
yeah,
who consumes media, like when I saw Bottle Rocket, which is the Wes Anderson's first
yeah.
movie, I saw it in the theaters. Um, and you're like, I'm gonna watch the next thing they do. Like that was great. And the next thing they did was Rushmore, which I've watched. Like I love it. but if your first movie was Royal Tenenbaum, you go, oh, I got to see more of this guy. You look, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm the type of person who's like, if I read a comic I like, I'm looking for the writer. If I read it, you know what I mean? It's just how I am. And it's less to me that I want people to go, oh, Kyle Starks. I got to get it says Kyle Starks on the title. What I want is for people to sort of be able to universally go, oh, it's Kyle Starks. That'll be fun. Yeah. That's what I want. You know what I mean? Like less like, I mean, you very much want people just to buy your books because of your name and because you're your fan, but I just want people to go, oh, Kyle Starks, that should be good. That should be fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a quality associated with it and stuff like that. You know, like
then you know what you're getting. Yeah, like Jeff Lemire. Like Jeff Lemire has a singular voice. You know, that's what I think I want. It's like you just want people to go, oh, I'm going to get that because I know it'll be good. RBC, like, oh, what's this? It's a new Booster Gold comic. Yeah. Oh, Kyle Starks is doing it. I'm going to check it out. Like that's the sort of trail that you want people to go down. And then you just want like everyone universally like brainwashed sheep to be like chanting your name and just buying Funkos that look like me. No, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real.
You know, like if you start directing big movies and stuff like that, maybe they get to that spot. But you know, I think, you know, again, it's been awesome sort of like seeing the process and stuff like that. Because it's funny you bring up a Wes Anderson movie because I'm looking at like these frames I have from Moonrise Kingdom that me and my girlfriend, it's the binoculars and the glasses. It's like this piece. But yeah, it's like congrats to you, obviously, with the Eisners and then also sort of diving into the big two because I think you succeeded in what you want as a creator. I picked up that book and I was like, all right, I got to read more of this. And then also I was like, oh, he's on Twitter. I would love to talk to him and kind of get like your perspective on things because I'm reading it and I'm like, I think he figured it out how to, you know, make this character exactly as they are in the TV show, but bring something different. And, and writing is creative problem solving. You were able to find a way to kind of bring that without having, you know, Eagly and Vigilante, you know what I mean? And I think that's really good. Like if someone goes into like, hey, like it's been 2 years since Peacemaker came out, like what can I read? You know, it's like Peacemaker Tries Hard. Here you go. Yeah,
that's what that's what you want. You want all those people to be like, oh, this is what I wanted, and I got more of what I wanted. Like how exciting is that? Like what a success.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for giving me the time. Like I'm really excited for you. It was great to chat and like learn your process and stuff and talk. But thank you. And with that, bada boom.
Bada boom.
Thank you for listening to the Bada Boom Podcast. Keep the conversation going with Chris and I on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You can find us on all these places at Bada Boom Podcast. Get into the comments on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you like about the show or what you'd like to hear from us in the future. Until next time, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thanks for listening.